Hello guys, welcome to another session. In this session we are going to look into event binding. So let's jump into the Visual Studio Code to understand this concept. So in the earlier session we have created this class component, and where we have binded over here on click, this method is going to be called. This is perfectly fine whenever we are using this method to print the console.log within the console, but this way of using the method will fail if we are trying to build something meaningful. So let's understand with an example over here. So instead of printing this message on the console, I want to print this message on the UI on click of a button. So how we can do that? We need to come here and we will insert a constructor. For that we will use the snippet rconst, and over here we need to specify the log message, and here we will tell that we will print the same message over here. So copy it and paste it over here, so it will change the message also. To change the state value we will use this dot set state, and within the set state we will pass the properties log message with the new value. So here I can specify button click. So once the button is clicked, so this message get displayed. So let's look into that whether it is working or not. And here we can use the state and we will print it into h3 tag. So h3 tag over here, within the curly braces we can specify this dot state dot log message. Save it. Let's look into the output now. Then you will see it over here. We have successfully displayed the message logged class component. Now if you will click on it, so it should change the text from logged class component to button clicked, but this will throw an error. So let's look into that. So see here, it has thrown error as it is not understanding what actually this keyword is. So that means it lost the context of React component. So let's look into the ways how we can resolve this issue. To understand that why it lost the context, you have to go through my course, which is a step-by-step mastering modern JavaScript, where I have explained in detail about the this keyword. So I would request that you have to finish that section, as it is mainly related to the JavaScript, not related to the React. For a time being, you just consider it. When the code get executed, then it lost the context of React. So once it lost the context of React, then it doesn't know about the set state. So this is representing the context of the current object. So to get the context back, we need to bind it. So we need to tell that dot bind. There is a method called bind, and over here we need to specify this. The moment you specify that, so it will keep the context intact. Now let's look into the output. So let's jump into the browser. Make sure that you are saving the file. Now let's click on this button. Then you will find that we will get the button click message. So that means this time it doesn't lose the context of this keyword, which is mainly representing the context of the current object, that is our CC button class, and which is being inherited from the component class of the React. So this is one of the way by which you can bind the event handler. To achieve the same thing, there are another 3 ways by which you can bind the event. So let's look into those ways of binding the events. So let's jump into the Visual Studio Code. Now let's look into the second approach, which we have already seen earlier. So this time we are going to create an arrow function within the on click, and we will call this method over here. So how we can do that? We need to specify over here the parenthesis and then the arrow function over here, and this time I will tell that this dot log me. So here you need to specify the method name log me and save it. Now let's look into the output. So let's click on the button over here, and then you will find that it is working as expected. So now let's proceed further and look into the other way, that is third way to bind the event handler. So let's now discuss about the third approach, and which is recommended approach by React documentation. Through this approach we bind the event handler in constructor instead of render function. So let's look into that how we can do this thing. So let's revert the earlier change, Control Z, and over here we will take back the earlier thing, and over here I will copy the earlier bind method, and this time I will remove this part from here, save it, and then I will go to the constructor, and within the constructor I will tell that this dot log me equal to this dot log me dot bind with this. Save it. So this time we have binded it within the constructor. So this event handler is binded within the constructor instead of render method. So let's look into the output. So now we got the message over here, logged class component. Now let's click on the button. It should change the message from logged class component to button click. Click on it and it done the expected behavior. So we have seen the third way. Now let's look into the fourth way. So now discuss about the fourth way of event handling. This time I am going to remove this one, and instead of that I am going to create the arrow function over here. So this is the way I generally prefer. So what I do, I can create this function as arrow function, convert it. We will use the arrow operator over here, and this time I will save it like this way, and this time I haven't binded anywhere. I just use it as is. The only thing which I did is I just converted this function into an arrow function and just saving it. Let's look into the output, what the output we are getting. So let's click on the button and you will find that it worked as expected. So let's proceed further. The benefit of using the arrow function is that it will retain the context of the React component, and because of that reason it is not losing the generally referring to the current object, and that is our CC button, and which is being inherited from the component class of React. And this is the preferred approach of mine as it provides more readability to me, and I would request you should also use the same. So on this note I am stopping over here. See you in the next session. Till then, bye bye, take care.